We're joined now by a great friend of the ACLJ, Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. Senator Graham, you tweeted that we're about 100 days from a midterm election, and while no one is above the law, I think this is a great point. The law must be above politics. What are you concerned about, like these optics? I mean, this is I think very dangerous for our country leading into an election year, but also in general, this kind of idea of the executive branch being weaponized against one political viewpoint.
Well, here's my concern, is that if you look at the FBI actions toward President Trump through the Mueller investigation, you will find an FBI lawyer manipulating evidence to the FISA court. The FBI and DOJ were reprimanded by the FISA court for withholding exculpatory information regarding the Carter Page warrant. The guy pled guilty, got probation, but it's still a crime. The Mueller investigation was rotten to its core. They ignored exculpatory information, ran every stop sign you could run, believed every bad thing, whether they checked it out or not, and ignored the Russian subsource disavowing the primary document to get the Carter Page warrant. They've been investigating Trump for 5 years now. And what I would say to people is that the burden on the Department of Justice is exceedingly high. You're 100 days away from a midterm election. It's pretty well known that President Trump's going to run again. So this reeks of politics, and stay tuned.
Yeah, I mean, we saw with Christopher Wray last week. You and your colleagues were questioning him about the way the FBI was handling investigations. And I think what concerns me, I mean, I heard it from so many people last night as this news was breaking, is they just have this total distrust, which I understand, in the institutions of America, especially in our federal law enforcement institutions. They see the hearing last week where Christopher Wray kind of laughs off and doesn't really take seriously a lot of the questions, isn't prepared to answer. And then this happens. Their trust is if not low, maybe even gone in these institutions. I mean, this it's very serious. Do you think the FBI, they realize what they're doing to themselves?
I don't know, but everybody says, well, a warrant has to be signed off by a judge. I've heard that all over CNN and MSNBC. Well, that same process was used against Carter Page, right? A warrant had to be signed by a judge. Well, the judge is not, is no better than the information given. So the fact that a warrant was obtained means nothing to me, given the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. So the bottom line here is half the country believes they're out to get Trump. They'll use the law as a way of doing it, and there's zero confidence. Now, there's two things going on here. There's the Sussmans and the Wisemans and the Cabes and the Page and Strzok and, all those folks, the cast of characters. Then there's the average FBI's out there risking their lives, child pornography cases, terrorism cases, investigating China and Russia's effort to infiltrate America. So defunding the FBI is not the solution.
Right.
The solution is transparency and holding people accountable when they commit wrongs. So the bottom line here is, I think it's incumbent upon the Department of Justice to inform the Congress in a reasonable fashion about what's going on here, because this is such an extraordinary move 100 days before the election. And as to President Trump, he was strong yesterday. He's stronger today.
Yeah, I mean, Senator, I was going to ask you that because, it's not usual that we would get a lot of information from the FBI or DOJ during a normal, even high-profile investigation like this when we see a raid and we see kind of some movement. But when it comes to a former president, I think their silence is actually, it's hurting their entire case. Like you say, it's making President Trump stronger this morning because they haven't at least even gone to Congress with information about what's going on here, because this could be very unsettling for the country, and at a time, again, you talk about the impact on the elections, but it's also just how people are waking up today and how they feel, and this silence that would be usual for an investigation, I don't think works around this kind of when it's a former president and it's unprecedented.
Yeah, well, number one, it's a former president who's been investigated by the Department of Justice in a fashion that led to a rebuke by a court against the Department of Justice. The whole allegation about Trump-Russia fell apart. And so the one thing I would say is if the shoe were on the other foot, can you imagine this were happening on Trump's watch, where the Department of Justice, the FBI raided Hillary Clinton's house, that the country there'd be riots in the streets. So do conservatives. You have a right to be suspicious. You should demand answers in an appropriate way. But I promise you that Republican members of the Senate, we need to raise our voices and make sure that politics and the law are separated. Nobody's above the law. I said that. But the law has to be above politics, and the track record when it comes to Trump is pretty abysmal.
I mean, if this happened under President Trump and you put the shoe on the other foot, I would think of potentially an impeachment, definitely a special counsel, not to investigate Hillary Clinton, but to investigate him if this happened under his watch. And I agree with you, Senator Graham. Now, I want to take this to because people feel like they're kind of under assault by this administration's idea to double the size of the IRS and add in 87,000 new agents to come after and audit them. I mean, when you put all this together at the same time, people have seen the IRS, as you know, ACLJ. We did all of those cases of the Tea Party targeting cases. And now you've got Democrats moving forward legislation to increase that size to come after everyday Americans. I mean, I think this again, they already felt like they were being targeted as conservatives, and we've seen a history of it. You increase the size of the IRS, and at a time when you're raiding a former president's home that they may have been supportive or still supportive of, this kind of escalates quickly.
Here's what the problem is. Conservatives, we have found evidence the IRS used the powers to go after people they didn't like. They're, liberal elements of the IRS were using the power to go after people they didn't like. Well, Nixon did that. Whether you're a liberal or a conservative, we shouldn't be using the IRS as a political tool. Well, given what the FBI did, the idea of getting Trump is so in the DNA of people in this country. They don't care how you get him. They don't care the tools or the techniques you use. Just get him. So every conservative in America is suspicious of the IRS already. But 87,000 new IRS employees would be bigger than the British Army. There are 81,000 people in the British Army. Are you telling me we're going to create an IRS army? I don't believe so. So I'm going to have a rescission package. That's appropriation speak for canceling the money,
Great.
Sending it to the Border Patrol and counterterrorism activities, and we'll have a real debate. This is not done yet. They passed the reconciliation bill, but you have to appropriate the money, and we'll fight it.
That is great. We got a lot of questions from folks about what could be done, like with Republican victories in November, to pull some of this back and to fight back. And so Senator Graham has just put that forward about how we fight back against its IRS army, to use his own words, which is true. Final question for you, Senator Graham. I just appreciate you spending time with us on this breaking news day. Is, we marked a year from the pullout of Afghanistan, the disaster there. You're a foreign policy expert. You're a national security expert. The world also looks at us when this is going on domestically, and it can make America look pretty weak if it looks chaotic. And this is when people like the Chinese Communist parties of the world, the Russias of the world, try to take advantage of these kind of moments of domestic turmoil.
Well, that's really a great point. It's fun like being on your show. And tell your dad I said, hey,
Will do.
Y'all guys are awesome fighting for the Constitution. Let's look at it this way. We got the first real land war. I guess Bosnia was a war, but this is a major effort to rewrite the map of Europe, the biggest since World War II. We've got Taiwan's being surrounded by Chinese military exercises. We've got the Iranians trying to break out and build a bomb. We've got al-Qaeda leaders staying in guest house of the Taliban, and we're doing this 100 days before an election. So what I would suggest is that doing something this brazen and this provocative is going to shake confidence in America throughout the world. I travel a lot, and when we withdrew from Afghanistan, every ally began to question us, and all of our enemies started licking their chops. You'll never convince me that Putin did not get a signal from our withdrawal in Afghanistan. He did not do this on Trump's watch. Ever since Biden withdrew from Afghanistan, our standing in the world has been eroded. And having an FBI raid on the former president's home when he's working with these people, was that really necessary? Just makes every problem worse.
Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, a great friend of the ACLJ as always. I appreciate you spending this time with us today, walking us through this with your expertise, how it affects us here at home, how it affects us abroad, but also what we can do to stop that IRS army.